All right, everybody, we'll go ahead and bring the meeting to order. Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I think the councilwoman will join us in just a moment. I hope you all had a great holiday season and getting ready to get going on this year's steering committee. I sent everybody the the bylaws. There were some questions last time when we revised the bylaws in September in order to be able to take some action more fluidly on the Cherry Creek West project. So um, there were some questions that were remained out there in part on how appointments, and it used to be that the council person made all the appointments, and then when Councilman Hines was in, he didn't make the appointments, so we had changed it so that the organization made the appointment. And several of you had commented that they really wanted the appointment to come from the council person, or at least right now it says to confirm. So while I sent that out, I acknowledge that those questions were out there from the September meeting. So, but we will operate under the current bylaws as written. So that, and that's, again, we did that so that we could update some things, be more fluid in how we could take positions. And that's how we got the position taken with respect to Cherry Creek West. But if everybody, and I've heard from a few of you, could just confirm that the people who will be representing your organization, and then I'll get a new roster out for everybody, and then I will ask Councilwoman Sawyer to do what she used to do or what council people used to do, which is send a letter of steering committee appointments. So we're going to kind of merge what used to happen under, actually it was sort of Jeannie Robb who did a lot of that, continued by Wayne New, and then stopped under Chris Hines. So, and I think Councilwoman Sawyer is always so gracious. She said, I'll do whatever you guys want me to do. So if there are any open questions, please do send them to me. If there's anything in the bylaws that are of concern, and we'll make sure that we get everybody settled in their positions. I'm not seeing some members represented here today, so there she is. Hi, Councilwoman. I know she's had
Hey.
a little illness I understand you've been dealing with, but thank you for joining us.
Oh, I am happy to. And I went to the bid offices. So I am in my car driving home now. So I'm going to
Oh,
just turn off my camera and you guys are going to just listen to me talk for 2 hot seconds when you're ready.
okay. All right. Well, we'll go through the first part of the agenda fairly quickly here. I was just telling everybody that I sent around the bylaws that we had modified those in September to be able to add actions that could be taken so that we could get the Cherry Creek West um, Development and Community Benefit Agreement passed. But there were some questions that have been raised, and I just wanted to acknowledge that we didn't do anything to address those, but I'm going to ask you, Councilwoman, to go ahead and do letters of appointment. And as soon as everyone tells me who it is that they expect to be representing their RNO, I will get that over to you so that you can take that action if that works for you.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. And I think you and I had talked about that shortly after that meeting. Um, I would like to just tell everybody, Richard and I did talk about this. We are going to be meeting 4 times in person at the bid office, and those will be February, May, August, and November. And every other meeting will be by Zoom. So I will get those exact dates out, but that's how I expect this to kind of roll out this year. Because as Richard told me, he said now there are more people that want to be able to use that bid conference room. So we will be, I'll send that calendar out. But again, it's usually the fourth Wednesday of the month. And then there are a few exceptions, for example, when we end up on Thanksgiving Eve and some things like that. So, but with that, we'll get started. I don't believe I have uploaded the last meeting to the website because I still have to pick it up from Richard. I don't know, Richard, where does the time go? I just get that done. But I will be recording this one on my own Zoom, so I'll be able to get that up more easily. And because my printer wasn't working, I don't have the I'm going to just go from memory on my on the agenda here. But I think we're going to go right now to updates from council people. I don't see anybody from Councilman Cashman's office on the call, so we'll go right to Councilwoman Sawyer.
All right. Well, thanks, Lou. So I think the most important update is just, what we had talked about in our December meeting about the potential of creating a JID. So really excited to hear from a general improvement district. So really excited to hear from our consultant who will be, leading the process for us. That later. Other things that are happening around the city. There's a lot going on right now. But I do want to just flag a couple of things that we're working on in our office right now. In terms of legislation, we've got the our gas stations proposal coming through. So we need gas stations, acknowledge that. But we have some areas of the city where we're kind of seeing a proliferation of them. On the best example is Evans Avenue, where there are 9 gas stations in a 1.5 mile long stretch. So that proposal will be moving through. It's set for a hearing in February. Also set for a hearing in February, we are going to propose some changes to the Fair Elections Fund to make it actually a little bit more fair. And so those will be coming through also in February. We've been doing a lot of work in our office on both of those, and just really looking forward to partnering with INC for some of the exciting upcoming changes. This is something Councilmember Cashman has been working on for years, but the city is going to create an Office of Neighborhood, I think it's an Office of Neighborhood Empowerment is what they finally settled on. And it is a great opportunity for us to start doing a better job of looping in and notifying and partnering with our neighborhood organizations. So she is helping to kind of spearhead that. So really looking forward to that as well. And just want to kind of flag that for everyone, because I think it's going to be some really exciting and good and positive changes that are going to really loop in our neighborhood organizations in a better way. So I think that's it. Any questions about what's going on downtown?
Well, we'll definitely be back to you in a little bit to talk about the JID issues. But thank you, Councilwoman. And I will tell everybody that I am on the board of Inc. and have been working with Cashman for actually, I think for several years on this, but it never got traction. Now that it has traction, there will be a meeting at the United Christian Church, UCC, up on 6th and Adams on February 8th, I believe it is. And I will send that to everybody on the steering committee to get it out to anybody who might be interested in coming. Paul Cashman will be there. There will be somebody from this new division of neighborhood engagement, empowerment, I think is the right word. And so we will learn the initial parts of what they plan and how they plan it. Inc. is also working on what I affectionately call a manual as to how to RNO. And so a lot about soup to nuts, how do you organize? If you just have 12 people and you sign up, what kind of an entity are you? What are your yearly obligations? What are the requirements of the RNO ordinance? Here's the sample bylaws, those kinds of things. Here's who you contact. Here's a sample good neighbor agreement. Here's when you use that. Here's a sample development agreement. We're going to do soup to nuts, and then we're going to take it out and try to have it translated to Spanish so that we can take it to areas of the city that don't seem to be able to activate their voices like the neighborhoods represented on the steering committee. So our goal is to really try to push this out to make our city more inclusive and function better for underrepresented parts of the city. Annette has been helping. She's also involved with INC on behalf of CCNNA. She's been on it on Inc. for many, many years and has done amazing things. And we've had these conversations about this going into the future. So watch for that. And again, I'll send everybody information about that meeting that we'll have. That is the big kickoff. It is under the Inc. umbrella, not CCNNA. But anybody, so everybody in the city is welcome to come to that meeting and encouraged to come to that meeting. And we'll find out more about what those resources really are and how that will function. So I did hear that Mr. Smith is not going to be here for the mall today. So Richard, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on the bid and tell us how the holiday was and how everything is going there.
Yeah, absolutely. Holidays were wonderful for us. So we were, just really happy with the execution on the operations side and then the amount of foot traffic we were seeing in the bids. So had a big uptick in traffic to the holiday market. And then the events, the Saturday Night Lights event were just wonderful. The Hanukkah event was wonderful. So we just saw a lot of good community coming together for the holidays and a lot of good traffic to our businesses. And launching into this year, we are knee deep in planning right now. So right now we're planning our landscape investments for the year. We are looking at a lot of things on the public safety front, more to come on that. But I will update this group that Denver police did an amazing job and everybody's interested in those robberies that happened with the watches in the neighborhood. They do have a warrant out for arrest for the assailant in that case. So the driver was in custody and the vehicle was in custody, and now they have the warrant out for the arrest of the main offender in that case. So more to come. They think he's out of state in New York, but they'll be tracking that down. So just a really good job from the Denver Police Department on running that case and running it to ground to get a resolution for us. But other than that, we're just looking at our event calendar for the year. So we're going to have our summer concert series, which will be a little better than last year's. Last year we kind of dipped our toes in the water and thought we had a great event. And this year we're going to put a little more behind it and bring in some bigger acts and just have some great concerts, some wonderful events. So we'll get that event calendar out when it finishes coming together in February and get it out to the neighborhood. But really looking at a positive 2025 and making sure that we are going to hit the ground running as soon as spring rolls in.
Terrific. Any report on how you did on the fundraising wheel?
On the fundraising for what, Lou?
The what was it called? The fundraising that was a part of the
the giving machines. Oh, you know what?
Machines,
I don't have the giving machines reporting. I'll have to check with the marketing team and see if they have it. And I'll come back to the group next month, but I can say that we thought the giving machines in this second year, a wonderful addition to the neighborhood. For those of you that don't know, we have a set of vending machines on Fillmore that have 5 or 6 charities in there, and 100% of these proceeds go to the charities. And you can go in there, and instead of maybe getting a $6 cup of coffee, you can buy a $6 item for somebody in need. And it really gives us option of from low cost up to more significant items and being able to have just a great way to donate to some wonderful charities. I will bring back a report to the group on that, though. I think they were very happy with what they saw in them, though.
Fabulous. Well, thank you very much for that report. Any questions for Richard on the bid? And I think we're going to move right along. I'd like to welcome Judge Gary Jackson, who lives in our neighborhood, who has been a good friend of ours and actually has known my husband since before they were even in law school, either one of them. I would like to welcome him. He is going to appear several times in front of the steering committee because he's also, in addition to the conversation today about an event that will take place in February, Black History Month, he has also been appointed to run the America 250, Colorado 150, or one of them, right? He's going to correct me. You can correct me, Gary. But today he is here to talk to us a little bit about the event coming up, and one that should be really interesting for everyone. So Gary, would you like me to would you like to share your screen?
No, I really don't need to. So I don't have any documents with me, but what I'll do is I'll put in the chat the information, the more detailed information. But Lou, thank you very much, and you make me feel more important than I am. Today, when I see all of you, and some of you I know personally, I wear two hats. And the first hat that I'm wearing is about a Black History Month event that's coming up on 2nd at
February
1
22nd.
o'clock. Yeah, February 22nd, 1 o'clock p.m. It's being sponsored by the Arapahoe Libraries, and it is called The Legacy of Cherry Creek, Growing Up Black in Denver's Transforming Neighborhood. And what I'm thrilled about is many of you may have read about my mom. My mom was called the Grand Dame of North Cherry Creek. And the reason why she was called that is that she lived on the same block for 98 years. Our home is on 3rd and Garfield Street. My great-grandfather back in 1919 came from Missouri to Colorado because he had a son that was in the Fitzsimmons Army Medical Hospital because of a World War I injury. As a Black man, he felt that there were more opportunities in Colorado than there were for him in Missouri because he had been born into slavery. And so when he came to Colorado, he bought 3 lots in North Cherry Creek. He bought several lots up in Lincoln Hills, which is an historic Black community in Gilpin County. But this particular panel discussion is going to be about the Black families of North Cherry Creek. And there have been Black families in Cherry Creek since the 1850s. And you will learn that in the 1850s, not all of the Black families or Black people in Colorado were free. Some came as slaves. And but we will be talking about the Black families of North Cherry. We have a wonderful, wonderful panel that includes Cleo Parker Robinson. Many of you have heard about Cleo and her international dance company. But Cleo and her family, her mom and dad, moved into North Cherry Creek when Cleo was about 6 or 7 years old. Cleo went to Bromwell. She went to Hill Junior High School. She went to George Washington High School. And in 1965, she was the George Washington Queen with my brother, who was the homecoming king in 1965. So she'll be talking about her family stories. Another person on the panel is Trudy Morrison. Trudy Morrison is the granddaughter of George Morrison, who was a concert violinist. There's a park named after him. This park is on about 32nd and Fillmore Street. But she'll be talking about her aunt who lived on 1st and Monroe Street and was the piano lessons for dozens of people that lived in North Cherry Creek, including Cleo Parker Robinson, including my uncle Art Scott. So I think that this is going to be a fascinating historical travel for many people that did not realize that, especially during, let's say, the 20s and 30s, there were probably 25 to 30 Black families that were living in North Cherry Creek. And of course, for me, the highlight is me being able to talk about my mom, who lived in the same block for 98 years, went to Steck, Gold, East High School. And so there'll be stories about my mom and the contributions that she made to North Cherry Creek, because she was an election official for about 30 years at North Cherry Creek. So that's one of the hats that I'm wearing. I will be putting into the chat the date of the event, which is February 22nd. It's going to be at the Embassy Suite Hotel in Centennial, Colorado at 10250 East Castilla Avenue. There will be a capacity of 350 people that can come to this event. Already 150 tickets have been sold already. So, and I shouldn't say tickets sold, because this is a free event, and all you have to do is reserve your space. So with that, I'll just open it up for any questions that anybody may have, and then I can talk very briefly about the second hat that I wear. I'm one of 21 commissioners for the America 250 Colorado 150 Commission that will be celebrating in 2026 the twin anniversaries of Colorado being a state for 150 years, celebrating the Declaration of Independence 250 years. Some of you may be old enough to remember 1976 when we had the bicentennial celebration here in Colorado. Those of you that are old enough, there may be 3 or 4 of you in the room that may be old enough to have remembered that. On Colorado Day in 1976, we had the Big Thompson flood. So that kind of took away some of the celebratory events that we had planned for Colorado Day back in 1976. But our celebration in 2026 will go all year long from January 1st through December 31st of 2026. I'd like to come back with to speak to you in more detail about that particular event or events, maybe at your next meeting. So let me open it up for any questions that any of you may have, because I know you have a long agenda.
I think there was one question, Gary, on how to reserve the tickets. So
what I will do is I'll put in the chat, and I'll send to you, Lou, the link and how you can reserve your ticket. So I will attempt to put that into the chat, as well as send it to you, Lou, by email, so that you can distribute it to the members of the steering committee and any other people that would be interested in North Cherry Creek's Black history.
thank you. I'll send that to everyone. We also are welcoming Gary at the upcoming February Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association meeting, which will be in person at Bromwell School. So hopefully there'll still be some tickets available for people who learn about it then. But until then, we'll try to get the word out. We have plenty of ways to do that. So it should be a fascinating event, and we're so appreciative that you told us about it and allow us to be a part of it. I'll be talking to Gary about the possibility of maybe even recording that so that we can have it as part of our Cherry Creek history. So if anybody has any ideas or wants to maybe help with that effort, please let me know and let Gary know. And I think it's something that we'll really appreciate, and then have that history for other generations to come, because that's our history.
Well, what I'll do is I will put my name, my email address, those people that are interested in how to reserve tickets, maybe want to volunteer or have any questions, do not hesitate to email me, because I'll put my email address in. One of my good friends I see on the screen right now is Gwen Ehrlich. She had an opportunity to meet my mom on a number of different occasions, both at our home and up in our cabin in Lincoln Hills. So Gwen, it's great to see you. And let me stop and put something into the chat.
And you said there might be some volunteer opportunities.
Yeah,
So
there may be through the Arapahoe Libraries that is putting on this particular program. So this is a program not by our Denver library, but by the Arapahoe Libraries.
okay. Well, it would be terrific. Gary, I'll work with you. Again, if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll thank Gary very much for being here, for sharing this. We will have him back. Maybe there'll be some opportunities for people to help on your commission on the America 250, Colorado 150. So thank you for being here. You've been in our neighborhood forever. I know you were very busy, but now you're retired. and we have your number. So,
Thank
you know,
you.
that's where we can tap some of the great resources in our neighborhood. Well, thank you very much for that.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Any questions? And then we'll be circulating that information to everyone as well. So let's see. I think we'll move now to the to one of the big topics tonight. And Councilwoman, I'll have you introduce Jamie. A lot of us know her from other efforts that she's had. But if Amanda, you could give some background, and we'll move forward into the continued discussions of the JID. Oh, can I make one other shout out real quickly here? Linda Barker, happy birthday. So she's actually here, even though it's her birthday. I hope you have a cocktail, Linda, while you're at this meeting. So happy birthday, Linda. Okay, Councilwoman.
Happy birthday, Linda. That's amazing. Thank you for being here. And also, may I just say, I think you're crazy for being here on your birthday. Well, thanks, Lou. Really appreciate it. So just to kind of refresh everyone's memory, at the end of 2023, after I came into office and the new kind of boundaries took over for council districts, I sent out a survey to Cherry Creek residents because I wanted to get to know our residents a little bit better. I wanted to learn more kind of about what it was that our residents were thinking and wanted to hear and see in their neighborhood. And it was very interesting, the kind of information that we got back. We got back two pieces of information. The first are sort of a list, a general feeling that the city is not investing enough in the Cherry Creek neighborhood, which I agree with completely. And the second was a desire from residents for a number of different items that are things that the city would never pay for, but that residents of Cherry Creek would like to see. So I started kind of asking around, how would something like this work? Could we provide our residents with these kinds of things? And if so, how could we do that? And the short answer is that we would need to explore setting up a general improvement district, right? And so a general improvement district, we can talk a little bit more about what that is and how it works. I am not at all an expert in this. And so the first thing I do when I'm not an expert in it is I ask for help. And so I reached out to Jamie Gillis, who is an expert in this, and this is what her business Centro does. And so I've invited Jamie tonight to kind of introduce herself and kick off the idea of what is a general improvement district, how does it work, et cetera. And I've asked Lou if we can maybe have 20 minutes kind of monthly over the course of the next few months as we start to do outreach and have conversations with residents and with business owners and with property owners and with developers all in the Cherry Creek neighborhood to kind of see whether this is an idea we would want to pursue or not, because it's something the voters would have to vote on and have to be voter approved. So with that, I want to introduce the amazing, fantastic, wonderful expert, Jamie Gillis. Jamie needs no introduction, but we are very grateful that she is with us and helping us kind of lead the outreach process over the next few months to start these conversations on whether we should set up a general improvement district in the Cherry Creek statistical neighborhood. So Jamie, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Amanda. Gosh, I didn't pay you at all to say that either. You along to all my meetings from here on out. But thank you for the introduction. And I see a lot of familiar faces and names on the screen. So nice to be here tonight. I think probably some of you only know me from my political run, but I have had a consulting business for 15 years. And before that, also was doing consulting for another company. So I've been in this special district space for about 23 years. I've done somewhere in the vicinity of 75 special districts all over the world. And I have done quite a few districts in Denver as well. Notably, and more probably recently, I just helped the Ballpark District form a general improvement district in this past November, which we'll talk about in a minute. And then the River North business improvement district and general improvement district was also a big effort, one of the biggest districts to be formed in the state of Colorado. So lots of experience in the process and how it works. And Amanda, when she reached out, said, where do we start and kind of what's the first phase of the effort to get going on something like this. So our task at hand right now is to kick off the exploration of a general improvement district, building on the engagement and outreach that's already been done so far. And we'll be doing work over the course of this spring in an effort to engage with the community and understand how a JID might fit in, and also develop what I call a feasibility study. So in addition to engagement, we'll be looking at the data and what a JID could raise and what those, what the JID dollars could fund and all of those sorts of things. So that work is kicking off essentially tonight. We've just been kind of laying the groundwork the last few weeks for what that'll look like. I have a little PowerPoint to help walk you all through just some background on what a JIT is and what the formation process looks like. And that, excuse me, and then we'll talk a little bit about what the engagement process is going to look like starting in really in February as we reach out to various neighborhood stakeholders. So let me share my screen. Let's see. Can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Give me one moment. The dog is barking, so I close the door. So I assume a lot of you are familiar with business improvement districts because of Cherry Creek North being such a prominent business improvement district in the city of Denver. And so JIDs are very similar tools, but slightly different in the fact that business improvement districts can only assess commercial property, and general improvement districts can assess both residential and commercial property. And so for a long time in Denver and in Colorado, bids were really the primary tools used in district or neighborhood, well, I should say kind of urban commercial district revitalization, where there was primarily commercial property and businesses. As our neighborhoods have gotten more mixed use and complex with a mix of commercial and residential properties all combined into one area, JIDs have increasingly become a popular tool because they allow residents to participate in the development of program plans for these mixed-use areas and in helping to fund and support and ultimately have a voice in how those services are delivered. So the JIDs, general improvement districts, are enabled by state statute. They're essentially considered a quasi-governmental special district, just like bids are. There's thousands and thousands of special districts across the country and across the world now, in all different types of areas. Colorado is unique in that its bid statute doesn't allow residential, so it has this JID statute where JIDs, both residential and commercial, are allowed. But in some places, if you travel elsewhere, business improvement districts include both. They're a special district assessment tool that essentially allows stakeholders in a defined area to establish a boundary, set priorities for projects and services they would like to see within those boundaries, set a budget, and then develop a plan for implementing it. And using the funds generated from the special assessment tool, they implement that plan collaboratively in partnership with the city and others. JIDs can fund a variety of things. You can do safety, you can do maintenance and enhanced cleaning, you can do infrastructure projects, marketing, placemaking, more. You can also bond against JID revenues for up to 30 years. So you can bond against in your first few years of operations and then pay off over time. And then the funds are managed by an independent board of those paying the assessment. So even though it's an additional assessment or additional tax, all the funding comes back to a board of directors, which we'll talk about in a moment, that is comprised of people who are paying that assessment in the district, and they determine year to year kind of the daily details of how funds are spent. As I mentioned, assess both residential and commercial. The big thing is the creation of a unified voice. And again, you see that in Cherry Creek North, you have kind of centralized governance, management. It provides structure for an area while generating resources to enhance the vitality of a district, and really puts greater control of a district in your hands, because you have resources. You have reliable resources year after year, so you can plan on things, you can invest in things, you can have a seat at the table. I talk a lot about how great these districts are for leveraging other resources outside of just the assessment. You establish city relationships as part of the service delivery plan, so the city's at the table in codified ways to support you in service delivery. For example, the ballpark JID I mentioned is launching with their JID going to be doing comprehensive 7-day-a-week safety services, as well as launching a homeless outreach and navigation program that's JID funded. The JID and the city have intergovernmental agreements with both of those, connecting them to the police department, host, and DDPHE, that sets out what the responsibilities of each parties are and how they're going to work together to tackle the particular goals of that district. So that gets codified in an intergovernmental agreement, and then everybody knows what their roles and responsibilities are in delivering those services. I mentioned there are a couple JIDs, and they're growing across the city of Denver. The 14th Street JID was probably one of the first more notable JIDs that did a lot of enhancements, improvements around 14th Street. The Rhino GID came after that, funding infrastructure on Brighton Boulevard and providing maintenance and cleaning and some safety services around that area. The Ballpark Denver JID is the newest GID in Denver, about a $1.3 million budget. And as I mentioned, safety, security, and homeless outreach are key expenditures of that JID. And then they're also investing in lighting, placemaking, branding, and beautification for that district as well. There are also loads of business improvement districts, just for reference. So districts as a tool in Denver have long been a way that neighborhoods organize and fund enhanced improvements. As Amanda said at the beginning, these districts are largely funding services that the city of Denver doesn't provide, and or leveraging city funds to augment programs and projects. So I mentioned the Rhino JID and Brighton Boulevard. I was there at the beginning of that district, where the city had funding for Brighton Boulevard, but was just going to essentially build a 6-lane highway in and out of downtown. And the JID came into play and really was able to shape the design of that, but also added some resources to do enhancements to it, a separated cycle track, unique lighting, investments, trees, all those sorts of things, beautification that the city wasn't otherwise going to fund. So the process to form a district does happen. It is led by the stakeholders in a district. So once an area is defined, property owners within that area petition the city to create the district. So we look at how many people are in an area, we pull the data, how many property owners are there, and the people who get to sign the petition actually include owners of commercial property, owners of residential property, and then residents who live in the district who are registered to vote there, even if they don't own a property. So those are the folks that get to sign the petition and vote in the election. We have to receive, the statute says either 200 signatures or 30% of the total electors, whichever is less. So 200 is for sure going to be less in this large district. That petition is accompanied by a detailed JID operating plan that people are signing the petition against. So the plan says exactly how much the district will charge, how the money will be spent, who the board will be. All of those types of things are detailed out in the plan. And then once the petition thresholds are met, they're submitted to the city. That kickstarts the city council process. There is a public hearing. City council ultimately adopts an ordinance to allow the district to move forward to a Tabor election. And then a Tabor ballot is held in November. And a simple majority of everybody returning a ballot must vote in favor. If the Tabor ballot passes, then you have a district, and then you're off and running. And the ballot happens obviously in alignment with the typical election in November. So once that election happens, then your assessments start in January of the following year. So you're off and running within 2 months of the election having passed. If it's approved, it's mandatory for all to pay. The district collects and manages the assessments. So the city, well, actually, the city collects the assessments on the tax bill, but distributes them to the district bank account, and then the board of directors oversees the day-to-day expenditure of the funds according to the plan. As I mentioned, commercial and residential property are accessible. Government organizations and tax-exempt organizations cannot be forced to pay in either a bid or JID, but they often contribute via what's called a pilot or a payment in lieu of taxes fee. And then there's lots of structure to the governance. They're managed by a board, as I mentioned. The stakeholders get to determine the size of that board and kind of the mix of that board, but typically we codify the seats in the board. So we always want to make sure there's commercial owners, residential owners, that there's geographic representation, use type representation, a mix of large and small. And then the city requires 2 city appointments to sit on the board too, and that's typically the council person for the district, and then 1 other city agency rep that they select based upon the service plan. So if you're going to be doing safety, DPD would be the chief of police, or the lieutenant for the district would be the appointed person for the board. Let's see. And then there's lots of safeguards. There's lots of things we build in terms of making sure that if the district goes off the rails, there's protections to reel it back in. And so those are all built into the work plan. Audits are required, annual budget and work plan submission to the city. So we make sure that there's lots of protections for people, since these are tax dollars, additional tax dollars that are being spent and invested in the area. So just to kind of wrap up, I just wanted to make sure everybody had a bit of a baseline on what JIDs are. As I mentioned, our work right now is to launch into the feasibility phase. And the first piece of that is engagement. So I've been working with Councilwoman Sawyer's staff, and we've outlined an engagement strategy. We're going to be doing lots of engagement. We're going to start with the neighborhood organizations and the civic organizations, and I'll be coming to each of those and doing a presentation and an interactive session to hear about people's thoughts on additional services they might like, their willingness to pay for those services, just kind of getting a baseline for where people are with the whole concept. We also are meeting with some of the larger development groups that are landholders. We'll be doing a series of forums with businesses as well as residents in all the many residential complexes, so people can come out and listen. So we'll be spending the better part of the next 2 to 3 months just engaging and listening. There'll be a survey component as well that we'll share with you when we come to your neighborhood meetings, how to do that. And I've described to others the kind of approach we take, which is an hourglass. Right now, we're sort of the funnel is wide open, and we're just taking as much as we can get. Once I kind of understand where people are, we'll be able to synthesize and boil down what the structure of this might look like and if there's support for it. And from there, we'll kind of start to build it back out and detail it out. And so that will end, as I mentioned, in a feasibility study that kind of summarizes pathways to success and support for a JID long term. So I will stop talking and see if there are questions, or if Councilwoman has anything else she wants to add.
Nope, nothing to add. Thank you so much. I see that there are a couple of questions in the chat. So Lou, why don't you, do you want to moderate those questions, or do you want me to do it?
I'll be happy to read the questions, and then you can jump in. Some of them I think we have covered a little bit in the last meeting, that this involves the statistical neighborhood. So if you look at Cherry Creek as one of the city's statistical neighborhoods, it goes all the way down from 6th to Alameda, around Cherry Creek West, the mall, It does not include what we've often called the Cherry Creek Triangle, goes over to Colorado. So it's, if anybody can find the statistical neighborhood, but those are the areas. So it will involve the residences in the bid. Of course, the bid is a part of the CCNNA neighborhood, and we've been trying very hard to make sure that the residents there are included in a lot of this. We have, I don't know if there's really not this question that Brooks had about minimum size district in terms of property value or geographical area to make a district feasible. Do you want to take that one, Jamie or Councilwoman?
Sure, sure. Yeah, I can weigh in. There's no minimum size. In fact, in the city of Denver, there are some teeny tiny little bids, a couple of them that are just a couple blocks long, and they serve small commercial districts and only generate, $50,000 a year or something, and they use those funds for events or marketing, and so that serves them. What I'm always looking at is the return on investment and the impact, in terms of what you want to do. A neighborhood that wants 24/7 security, things like that. Obviously, we have to balance the realities of what that costs and how far we can spread that cost. And then, is it going to be impactful enough for people to support it? So there is a lot of back and forth that goes into that and consideration. I never want to go through all the brain damage of creating these districts because they're hard work, only to have you underfunded and not be able to be impactful. And then people are frustrated and irritated that they're paying something to get not much of anything. So those are kind of the conversations we'll have as we build out the feasibility study. Is first, we just listen. We listen to what people want and we try to align that with what you could get for the revenue. And at some point, there's a decision that the community has to make, which is, well, gosh, if we pay, if it costs us $1 a day, we could get security 5 days a week. But if we pay $2 a day, we could get 24/7 security patrols. So is it worth $1 or $2 a day? And, we'll get to those kind of decision-making processes where people will have to make that decision for themselves, and we'll have to test that before we make a final recommendation for petitioning.
So it's my understanding, and this was first of all, I'm hoping that you can send us your slideshow so that we can include that to the steering committee and in our minutes. And then the idea that you really want to have particular desired items that come out of the survey results, and you want to put dollars to those before you get too far into this. Councilwoman, you just did your survey, which closed at the end of the year. How was the response this time?
That's a great question, Lou. So we do an annual survey in our office every year. Thank you to those of you who filled it out. We had almost 2,000 respondents again this year across Council District 5. So we're in the process of going through, because we ask, the specific neighborhood people live in so that we can make a determination. Like I'll say, in the 2023 results, we could tell you that crime and safety was the #1 issue for every single neighborhood in District 5. But we're still kind of analyzing those results right now. So I'll have those next week and we share those publicly. You can find them on our website from 2023. The 2024 numbers we're just still working on. But we had a great response. I suspect that we will find that crime is, again, the #1 concern of most of our residents, followed quickly and closely by concerns about traffic safety, which kind of go hand in hand. But I will say, in the results of the survey that we sent specifically to Cherry Creek neighbors, that we did at the end of 2023, what we heard from residents, remember I said there were sort of two things. So in that second bucket of things the city is, never going to pay for, we heard from residents a real desire to focus on three kind of main areas. That first one is community safety. That second is beautification. And that third is sort of transportation safety. So around those three topic areas, we heard things like the residents of Cherry Creek would like to see what exists in the bid, which is a uniform lighting scheme that lights up the streets at night to make people feel safer when they leave the bid and are walking home to their houses. Great idea. That's not something the city is ever going to pay for. If we wanted something like that, a general improvement district taxing ourselves to implement a lighting scheme across the entire Cherry Creek statistical neighborhood is possible. It is expensive, right? So the question then becomes, how much are you willing to pay for? One of the other things that we heard from residents was a desire to have that same kind of company that drives around the Cherry Creek bid area. It's a security company. Actually, when I accidentally went to the bid headquarters tonight, I saw them in the parking lot at 250 Columbine. So it's a really great service. If something like that were to be broadened to the entire Cherry Creek statistical neighborhood, that's something residents have said that they would want. That's what we heard from the survey. How much it would cost and whether residents are willing to tax themselves to pay for it is a totally separate conversation. But those are the kinds of things that we heard feedback on. Those are the kinds of specific projects that we heard from residents that they would like to see. And those are the kinds of things that the city is never going to pay for because those are simply not city services. So, that's kind of what brought those kinds of specific projects are what brought me to the idea of a general improvement district and having these conversations with community. I think the question is, what other projects are out there? What other things would residents of Cherry Creek like to see? How much do they cost and how much are people willing to pay for them? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I think there are a couple other questions in the chat that I'll raise here. Meredith asked, is there a sweet spot of members to offset the administrative expenses?
So as part of designing the budget, we would obviously work collaboratively with stakeholders to determine what the administrative needs are. I'm a big fan of keeping the administration costs low. I try to keep it to 10 to 15%. But it's somewhat going to be determined by the services you want provided. So if you have a district, if the district wants to do security and that's it, and maybe you want a part-time administrator just to oversee the security contract and host the board meetings and do some of that stuff, you need less of the administrative. If you're creating a district that wants to do events and advocacy and full marketing strategy and all those things, your administration might look a little bit different. So I don't think there's a sweet spot. I think it's designing to the priorities. I always look first at what are the things that people want and how much are those going to cost to deliver realistically, and then get to the point where people decide, do they want it enough to pay for it, or do they just sort of want it and that kind of falls off the list. So it's an iterative process that we'll go back and forth on as it evolves.
I do know that Doug and Rob had told the steering committee before that they got some of the cameras, the cloud cameras in the country club area, but that's an example of something that increases security but isn't as expensive as having people. So understanding the parameters might be a really good thing, and this goes with what Bill Tanner raised, which is the survey is great, but with starting with focus groups help frame the survey issues. Because, for example, to Bill's point, not everybody remembers that as a part of the development agreements that we have in place right now, we have the ability to end up with these gateway properties that the developer or the city will own some of that land, but that we then get to do a gateway on it. So what does that gateway look like, and how do we have money to do something interesting? That could be something that we have to actually educate people about. It's like, oh yeah, well, we would want money to do that, so let's forward think that. So I think understanding what are the options with maybe some focus groups before we really survey, so you can take the survey out with specifics, is probably a really good idea.
Yes, and sorry if I wasn't clear, but that is the process. So the first thing we're going to do is set up focus groups with all those different entities I mentioned. So we're going to do, it'll be individual groups with all the neighborhood organizations where I'll come to your meetings. And Owen's working on scheduling those. And then we're doing individual meetings with some of the larger property holders in the area. And then we're going to do a series of focus groups. There'll be some targeted for businesses. There'll be some targeted for residential in some of the residential towers. So we have a whole series. There's probably going to be 20 or more different meetings or focus groups. And I will come to those and do a presentation and then an interactive discussion and feedback session. I also have a fun tool called Mentimeter where people can real-time text ideas and they get captured on a screen during the meetings. And so that's sort of fun because people can put ideas on the screen and then other people can say, "Oh, I love that idea," or whatever. And it's a great way for me to capture information. Once we finish all those focus groups, though, then yes, we'll take all that information and put it into a survey and then come back to the people that we've engaged with and say, okay, this is what we think we heard. Now prioritize it, right? If you only had $3 to spend a day, like where are the three places that you would want to spend your $3? All on safety, or one in safety, one in beautification, one in marketing, things like that. So that bigger kind of online survey will come after we've done all of the kind of first round of engagement.
Great. Doug asked, how does the JID board interact with the RNO or the Cherry Creek Steering Committee, or does it just subsume them? So
no, in most
does
cases,
not.
we create partnerships and clarify that in different ways, just so everybody knows what their particular role is in a neighborhood. So I still think there's a lot of value in the RNO structure for a lot of reasons, and RNOs can, have different roles in the city of Denver. So typically we do that through like a memorandum of understanding. It's as simple as that, to say, here's what the JID's going to do, here's what the RNO is going to do. And all we really want to try to avoid there is things like the RNO suddenly deciding they're going to go after a security grant when the JID's funding security out of those, and the JID really should be the one going after a security grant. You know what I mean? We just don't want there to be overlap. So we would define part of that as throughout the process, and then after the JID was formed, actually establish a legal MOU that just defined roles and responsibilities between the entities.
And it sounds like you're going to be doing this fairly quickly. Linda, we probably need to coordinate for May, because if you want to get this out to the neighborhood, then the next meeting of the entire neighborhood would be May, because February's full up. So
Yeah, that's great, Lou. And actually, this is a request for all of our different RNO representatives and entities that are on this call. If you are scheduling, your neighborhood organization meetings or your board meetings or whatever the case might be, we'd love to get on your schedule to come and present, and just over the course of the spring. So please, we'll be reaching out to you, but if you've got a date in mind or set already, please let us know so that we can get on your calendars. We'd really appreciate it.
Linda, did you want to weigh in on any of that?
No, I think there's just a lot going on. So I think we have to kind of think of the big picture. It would really help me, I think, visually to see a roadmap of a timeline, Jamie, of what you typically use, so we can backtrack it from them.
Yep.
In order for us to be proactive between now and May about focus groups and surveys. I mean, there's so many points that are all flowing around from your presentation. So it's like stepping back and looking at the big picture and then looking at the small steps that we can take between now and our next meeting in May.
Yeah, and I'm happy to do that. I've just been corresponding with Owen today on trying to get some of these meetings pinned down. So I'm hopeful we can do most of the focus groups in February and March, and then we'll kind of figure that out. But I'll lay that out for you. And also, I just want to make sure it's clear. I'm only under contract right now for this first feasibility phase. So there's typically kind of three key steps to the formation process of a JID. The feasibility, where we do all the listening and kind of lay out the skeleton of a plan and really try to understand if there's opportunity to make it work. Once the feasibility report's done, if there is a pathway forward, then the next step would be to actually go and develop the full operating plan that's set out by state statute. And that's essentially like the work of developing a business plan for your business. You know, we have to define all the parameters of how this thing is going to operate over time. And that development of an operating plan would also include significant engagement, because now we're kind of putting the meat on the bones. And so the detail gets important and we start engaging about the detail. So things like, yeah, I want security. It's like, you know, okay, where do we need security? How often do we need security? Do we need 2 security people or 10 security people? Do we need, we'll get to some of that in the feasibility study, but that's where we really start to drill down on the specifics. So there's more engagement when the plan gets developed. And then the third step is the legal creation process. So that's the petitioning, the council, and the election process as well. So just want to make sure everybody's aware the engagement doesn't stop after April. That's really just the framework that we would then build upon in another significant round of engagement after that.
I do want to acknowledge, Stuart Anderson is here, and Brooks raised a really good point. Along with gateways, the BRT stops, art and theme-based stops. So, we can think about transportation issues too, and Stuart would be instrumental in trying to help with that. We've long talked about the possibility of having, a little commuter in the area. And I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the kind of thing you could also plan for. And, as our Transit Management Association director, Stuart could help think that through. So we should also think about, when we're talking about these focus groups, let's use some of the expertise that we're so lucky to have on this team.
Oh yeah, and we'll be coming to Transportation Solutions Board too. You guys are going to be so sick of us by the end of the next few months.
Well, you're on it, so there you go. You get to bring that every time, Councilwoman. We're happy you do, because this is important, good stuff.
And you're right. Stuart is on our list. Transportation Solutions is on our list. I think there is so much opportunity. The question is going to be really narrowing down those specific projects and being able to price them out and then see what people are willing to pay for or not. But I do think, flagging the idea of a, micro shuttle commuter or something like that is a valuable one as well. That is definitely something that came out of the 2023 community survey as well. And actually, to acknowledge Stuart and say thank you, Stuart and his team are the ones who actually ran that survey for us. So acknowledgement on that as well.
And I think one of the big issues for me is going to be understanding how we deal with the bid, because a lot of this will overlap with the bid. The bid has been great at taking care of all the residents and their dogs who live in the bid, but who don't pay into the bid. And there's got to be some recognition of our growing residential footprint inside of the bid. Those residences theoretically would be paying into the JID. So having some MOUs, or maybe even some inter IGAs or relationship agreements between the bid contractors, the JID contractors, that can be done with an IGA or intergovernmental agreements, because both of these entities become statutory intergovernmental entities that can arrange these agreements. So we can expand get licensed to use maybe the same kind of lighting. We know Cherry Creek East has a lot of great pedestrian lighting, but nobody regulates it. It's not on all the time. They need help because, Brooks knows, we've dealt with this many times in Cherry Creek East, trying to see how we can keep those pedestrian lights on and unified. They're going to be different probably than what's in Cherry Creek North. What do the gateways look like? I know that Hilltop and Country Club, as we talked about at the last meeting, those neighborhoods will benefit. Why? Because they walk into the neighborhood. They walk home to their neighborhoods. I mean, that's why the steering committee is important, because we are unified, even though they wouldn't be voting members. It's important for them to understand what's happening so that we can all work together on what would be important to help the entire area. So in Cherry Creek West, they will be voting on this too. We don't know exactly what that project is going to roll out. We were going to have, Jenny was going to come tonight and make a quick update. She sent me an update. I can read it to y'all, but we're trying to get them to come and give some updates from time to time. But clearly they have, under the community benefit agreement, obligations to the neighborhoods, to the steering committee about things. So how does the JID interact with those obligations and that community benefit agreement during both the construction process and the ongoing maintenance and long-term implementation of those obligations. So there's a lot that's nuanced that probably layers this and makes it, Jamie, a little more difficult even than like a Rhino, where you were able to, or ballpark, ball arena development, where there's really nothing there yet. I mean, there's plans, but now we have so many stakes in the ground. And, the pedestrian lighting that Cherry Creek East enjoys was such a great idea that was in the neighborhood plan back then, but then it's dropped, so it's not consistent. So, but we've got a start on a lot of things that we can really look at and make better and make consistent.
Yes. Yeah. And I'll just add to that you're right. This is messy. This is a very messy process. So the ballpark district, which is over Coors Field, actually overtook 4 local maintenance districts, and each of those districts had different assessments and different boards, and we had to have agreements with 2 IGAs with the city. We had to have agreements with the Downtown Denver Partnership. We had to have agreements with the River North Bid. It's messy and it's complicated, but it's also a good exercise to get alignment between all these different things. And the other thing I wanted to share is that this can become as complicated as we need it to be to really make it work well. And so when you're talking about an area of this size, which is significant, particularly with the number of electors you will have that can participate in the formation process, we can create different zones of service. We can create layers. We can create different ways we assess depending on different levels of service that people in one area of the neighborhood want versus another area. So we're starting, like, part of this will be a geographic understanding as we go meet with the different neighborhoods and different stakeholders everywhere of what it's important to people by geographic area within this neighborhood. And that'll be part of the recommendation too, of, is everybody want the same thing? So it's one rate for everybody and they all get the same service? Or do we kind of have 3 different zones and areas where people are going to pay different rates to get different things that they want? And those are all things we'll have to test throughout the process as well.
Terrific. I know this is a lot, and it is very complicated. Of course, if you love puzzles, this is your jam, because this stuff can be so fun. You can think out of the box, you can get really creative. And so I think it's such an opportunity for these neighborhoods to work together to make something that really is terrific. And so, Jamie, your expertise, and you're right, I didn't think about all those overlapping districts in Ballpark, but that's what we're going to have. And so many different, I mean, if you think about our neighborhoods, they're block by block, they can be very, very different. So, but again, great opportunity. And we look forward to working with you on all of this. Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat? So with that, I'm going to just check to see if anybody from Cherry Creek West has joined. It does not look like it. So I will tell you that there weren't a whole bunch of updates. There were basically what Jenny is saying is that they're starting in earnest to do their design, and nothing has come up yet. And with respect to the design review board, Mary has advanced, and as we all know, we've supported Mary Morissette's participation on the design review board. So that's moving forward. The design is moving forward. It's not far enough along to ever hit the design review board at this point, but they will be starting some mitigation on the buildings that need to come down. So we should start seeing some construction activity, but it's mostly in the vein of mitigation and preparing to do the demolition. So that very initial phase will be starting in the next month or so. So we'll see some real activity. And with that, Councilwoman, anything else from your perspective?
No, thank
anybody,
you.
East, anybody?
And Lou, I will just say, you know, I want to say thank you to everybody for kind of hearing us out. I imagine that there is kind of a lot of anxiety created about the beginning of this conversation because it is so complicated and because there are so many unknowns, and that is totally fair. This is not the last time you're going to hear from us. Like I said, we'd love to have, you know, 20 minutes at each kind of upcoming steering committee meeting to update people on conversations or ask questions or any of those different kinds of things. And, you know, and anyone who's got ideas or thoughts, please don't hesitate to reach out to our office. We are here for all of that. So just want to say thank you to everyone. Please don't freak out. It is the very beginning stages of a very large, very long conversation that will take all of 2025 and most of 2026. But, you know, but at the end of it, I think we have an extraordinary opportunity here. So just really appreciate everyone keeping an open mind and keeping thoughts about it and reaching out with any thoughts or questions you guys have.
And kudos to Councilwoman Sawyer, because without her and her budget, we wouldn't have Jamie's expertise helping us. So, so thank you very much, because I agree this is an incredible opportunity for this entire area to really sort of transcend some of what has been happening in the fast developing parts of our neighborhood. But this will help us sort of mitigate some of the problems with that, likely, and just provide a opportunity for a better quality of life in the area. So thank you all very, very much. It is 6:15. If anybody has anything else, any R&O leaders, any questions, any comments? Seeing none, we will bring this meeting to a close, and I will upload the recording as soon as possible. So thank you all.
I just wanted to say all of the charging stations at Cherry Creek Shopping Center were in use tonight. How
Very
cool
good.
is that?
That's
Yay!
great.
Very
Great.
good.
Okay,
Thanks,
everyone.
Lou.
Thank you all so much. Good night.